Ah, Britain. Rolling green hills, misty mornings, sheep everywhere, and chaos. Lots and lots of chaos. By 410 AD, Rome had officially packed up its legions and said, "Sorry, Britain, you're on your own." Sounds like a polite "thanks for the memories" letter from your ex, right? But in reality, this was catastrophic. Rome had been the glue holding the province together. Roads, towns, baths, aqueducts, and armies. Without them, Britain suddenly became a target-rich environment for anyone with an axe and an ambition. Rome didn't just vanish overnight. It was a slow exodus, mainly because the empire was collapsing elsewhere. The Emperor Honorius had more pressing problems, like Goths knocking on the gates in Italy. Local British leaders, once Romanized governors, were left in charge. Some tried to maintain order, others, well, let's just say bandit chic became trendy. Meanwhile, the Picts in the north and the Scots, or Gaels, in Ireland, looked across the water and thought, hey, free land! And just like that, raids became a regular thing. Enter the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes, collectively the Germanic gang. Initially, they weren't invaders in the usual sense, they were mercenaries. British kings paid them to defend against raiders. But as always happens when you invite strangers with swords, things got complicated. The hired swords thought, hey, this land's nice, let's keep it. And thus began the Anglo-Saxon conquest. By the mid-5th century, towns fell into decay. Villas became fortresses or were abandoned. Roads crumbled. Trade slowed. People started looking suspiciously at each other and asking, who's in charge here again? Britain became a patchwork of warrior kingdoms, small territories ruled by petty kings. Some were more ambitious than others. Some were ambitious and paranoid. And of course, there were raids, constant raids. Imagine your neighbor keeps stealing your cows. Now multiply that by 1,000 with axes and fire. Out of the chaos emerged legendary figures. Take Ambrosius Aurelianus, a Romano-British warlord who fought back the Saxons. According to later writers, who liked to mix history and legend, he might have been the prototype for King Arthur. Meanwhile, the Saxons had leaders like Hengist and Horsa, whose names you might recognize if you like drama, swords, or just confusing ancient spelling. This era is where history gets a little mythy because our sources are sparse, very sparse, and often written decades later by monks who really liked adding a bit of flair. Probably the most famous battle in post-Roman Britain, Mount Badon. Think of it as Britain's version of Game of Thrones meets 300, but with more mud and fewer accurate historical records. Ambrosius, or maybe Arthur, depending on who you ask, fought the Saxons here. Sources claim it was a massive victory that held the Saxons at bay for decades. Victory! Well, temporary victory. History has a cruel sense of humor. After Mount Badon, no single ruler could control Britain. The land was fragmented. Wessex, Kent, Sussex, Essex, East Anglia, Mercia, and Northumbria, yes, all these little kingdoms emerged from the ashes. Life was hard. Villages fortified themselves. Lords wielded local power. And yes, taxes were often collected in, guess what? Cows, grain, maybe a human sacrifice. Okay, maybe not. Over time, the Saxons pushed inland. By the 6th and 7th centuries, Anglo-Saxon England was a reality. Britons were pushed to the west, Cornwall, Wales, and parts of Scotland. Culture shifted, languages evolved, pagan gods battled Christian missionaries for influence. Basically, think of Britain as a cultural blender on fire, with swords flying everywhere. By the time Alfred the Great arrived a few centuries later, Britain had gone through Romanization, invasion, rebellion, and consolidation. The post-Roman wars laid the foundation for England, Wales, and the cultural divisions we know today. So, while it was messy, brutal, and often confusing, this era created the identities, legends, and myths that still resonate today. So next time you walk the English countryside, remember, beneath those gentle hills and sheep pastures lies a history of war, ambition, and chaos, a history that began the moment Rome left Britain. If you enjoyed this dive into the post-Roman era, hit like, subscribe, and click that bell. Who knows what other lost wars, kingdoms, and legends we'll uncover next?